Hurricane Florence could destroy thousands of homes in the poorest towns, leaving residents homeless and unable to rebuild, experts have warned. The monster storm's predicted path means trouble for low-income communities in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina, which were historically built on lower, flood-prone land, while the rich took the higher ground. The town of Princeville was recently battered by Hurricane Matthew in 2016, and many of its 2,300 residents fear they will have to abandon the town for good if Florence's predicted 157 mph winds cause similar devastation. "It's scaring me to death," said James Howell Jr. "If I lose my place, I ain't coming back. I'm not coming back to Princeville no more." He still has furniture wrapped in tarpaulin on his porch because he is still rebuilding his living room after the damage caused by Hurricane Matthew, which left 2 feet of standing water in his house. Howell figures he has 2 options if he needs to flee. His daughter lives about 30 miles west, away from the river. That's certainly where his most prized possessions loaded aboard his pickup are likely going Wednesday, he said. And his granddaughter is staying in a secure motel through her retail employer's Larges, so maybe Howell and his wife could rest there, he said. Share this article. Share the rich have long claimed higher ground along waterways, and that left freed slaves to claim bottomland that made Princeville into the country's first town incorporated by Black Americans. Many people with limited means like the disabled Howells will struggle to escape Florence or build back when its damage is done. The median household income of Princeville is about $28,000 a year compared to the statewide $48,000, and almost 6 out of 10 town residents have public health insurance coverage like Medicare, Medicaid or the Children's Health Insurance Program in 2016, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. Florence's predicted path means trouble for some of the poorest communities in eastern North Carolina and South Carolina, said Susan Cutter, director of the Hazards and Vulnerability Research Institute at the University of South Carolina. Dozens of poor Black communities like Princeville across the region will have a harder time coping with Florence, partly because of the historic inequality that was there, she said. "What I'm fearful about is there are a lot of people who are not going to be okay because they don't have elevated structures," Cutter said. "They're in low-lying flood-prone areas and they didn't leave because they had nowhere to go and no resources to get there." Smaller and economically struggling communities across eastern North Carolina from Seven Springs and Windsor near Virginia's border to Lumberton along the South Carolina line continue working to recover from Matthew. But Governor Roy Cooper, who was elected weeks after that hurricane hit, promised Tuesday that low-income people won't be left to fend for themselves. The state is using detailed mapping to pinpoint where potential flooding could occur and will share that information with local governments who will warn people they must move. The idea is to have those shelters available to people on higher ground, and no matter what their income, we want to get people out of places that may be flooding, Cooper said. In Beaufort County, more than 100 miles east of Raleigh, emergency management officials will use school system buses on Wednesday to move residents living in flood-prone areas to higher ground in Washington, the county seat. There, the local high school will shelter up to 500 people. The county is split by the broad Pamlico River, and some of the 45,000 residents lack vehicles to reach the shelter on their own. "We are trying to provide transportation where they do not have transportation," said Carney Hedgebeth, the county's emergency services director. Retired sisters Clitty Gardner, 71, and Dorothy Pope, 78, ran in 2016 from the flooding spreading toward the home they shared before a massive oak tree, its roots loosened by Matthew's rain, toppled onto the building. They'll flee again to an aunt's home on higher ground across the river. For now, there's nothing to do but wait to see if Florence threatens them again. "They're saying it's 400 miles wide. There's no telling what it might do," Pope said. "When the water starts coming, and I see it coming, I'm moving." At least 25 million residents on the East Coast are at risk from the hurricane, which is expected to deliver a direct hit this week, bringing 157 miles per hour winds, devastating flooding and even the threat of a tainted water supply. The life-threatening hurricane has sparked massive evacuations, with as many as 1.5 million people warned to seek shelter from the potentially catastrophic storm, while 5 million are under a direct hurricane warning. This will likely be the storm of a lifetime for portions of the Carolina coast, the National Weather Service said. The service added that it couldn't emphasize enough the potential for unbelievable damage. Florence was upgraded to a Category 4 hurricane on Tuesday and was packing deadly winds of 130 miles per hour, but it is expected to strengthen and turn into an extremely dangerous major hurricane on Thursday night before making landfall. The Federal Emergency Management Agency said the biggest danger was the storm surge, a wall of water from the sea which could reach 20 feet high. Some areas could get deluged with 20 inches of rain. Hurricane Katrina in 2005 became the most devastating hurricane in U.S. history when it struck Florida and the Central Gulf Coast in 2005, causing $108 billion worth of damage.